World of RPGs, Episode 3, Greece. Welcome to the World of RPGs, a podcast in which we travel around the globe to visit the local role-playing game scenes. I'm your host Mo Bots, and in Episode 3 we're going to Greece. But before we begin, some housekeeping. This is the first episode edited after the launch of the podcast. I'm still looking for listeners and followers, so go subscribe on platforms such as Spotify or iTunes. The main news source will be on Twitter, but I'm also on Facebook both times as The World of RPGs. Also for this episode, I'd like to apologize for the sound quality of some of the parts. There's only so much I can do with the software I use. And now for the episode. Greece is not only the land where a lot of fantasy mythology comes from, Greek is also the language that gifted us with the words fantasy and mythology. So get ready for a lot of references to the past in this episode. The modern country has a population of about 10 million people, with the majority religion being Orthodox Christianity. The Greek language is an isolate among the Indo-European language family and is written with the, you might have guessed it, Greek alphabet, which at least my statistics students should be able to read. Greece is in the European Union and uses the euro. I'm pointing this out because it has an effect on trade and thus the availability of RPG books from other countries. Maybe one more comment on the geography of the country. Greece is very mountainous and consists of a lot of islands, meaning it can get difficult to get from one place to the next, for example, when you want to go to a convention or find a gaming shop in another town. We had ended episode 2 with an excerpt of actual play from a channel named Table Heroes, and here's the GM and one of the players telling us how they started it.
My name is Dennis, that's my English name. My Greek name is Dionysios. I live in Athens. I started playing D&D Dungeons & Dragons the year of 2000 for the first time. And I am the game master of the Greek D&D game show Table Heroes. And I'm also part of a bigger team called Labyrinthos, where we organize big Dungeons & Dragons events in Greece. I think the biggest maybe D&D events in Greece in the latest years. The truth is, I have sold my soul to D&D too. I know there are other systems, and I want to dedicate most of my time to one system. I'm mostly sold for D&D, just because there are only 24 hours in a day. If there were more, I'm sure that I would do more.
So I'm Spiros. Hello. I play Dante in our sessions. I also do the direction of our comedy sketches when we make them. I first played RPG games, I mean D&D actually, when I was 17 years old, so it should be 1997. I think it was version 1.5 or something like that then. And yeah, after that I took a break. I'm playing lots of computer games, so yeah, most of my RPGs were computer based for a lot of years. And then again, when we set up the Table Heroes, I started playing again, fifth edition now. I enjoy some occasional board games as well.
Table Heroes is, well, actually our cleric, Athena, was the one that suggested we made the D&D show during the quarantines. And since we actually couldn't be together anyway because two of our players are in the UK and the rest of our party is in Greece, so we decided to create this D&D show where we play a D&D campaign, and it is placed in our own custom setting called Moderarde, and it is of African geography and still being a fantasy setting. We actually play Horde of the Dragon Queen at the moment, but it is changed to represent our players, our backgrounds, and our setting. So it's a custom version of Horde of the Dragon Queen. There are not really many dragons in this setting, so we had to change it a little bit. We try to keep a balance between comedy and drama and good role-playing scenes, So yeah, something like that. We have some very passionate fans in this show, which I was told that they watch the show 2 times and 3 times again. And we usually post our games in YouTube, and we post an episode once in 2 weeks. The one characteristic thing about this show is that it is edited, and so it is a result that it is best for the viewers. And we put music in it, we create an atmosphere that it is best for the viewer to enjoy. And we do not just post our recorded game online, with all the time breaks and the pauses, and when we pause to check the rules, etc. In the first, I didn't want to create a D&D show because of all the work, but I was saying that if we have to create a D&D show, it has to be edited. If we're not the Critical Role cast, these guys, they just open their mouth and it's pure entertainment without having to do anything else, with no editing, etc. If we're not the Critical Role cast, then it will be an edited show. It has to be for the viewer. The need to create another world began from creating something that would be unknown to the players. So there was no particular reason for the African setting other than being something that would be unknown to the players, and just because for some reason I like remembering some trivia about animals and documentaries. So it was just easy to pop in my mind to create a setting that would be of African geography. It combines those two factors, being unknown and being close to me, since I have some interest in animals and their behaviors.
So that like characters would, instead of meeting, I don't know, wolves or bears in the wilderness,
Yes,
they would have
yes,
leopards
yes, and
and
hyenas and feline creatures, big cats. Also, the races are modified a little to be something like humanoid animals. We have humans, we have elves, and other than that, we have the loxodons, we have tabaxis, leonine creatures, and things like that.
I'm trying to stretch the D&D rules as much as possible. I mean, I'm playing with the core D&D rules, but I'm just putting it in environments and situations where it's not really usual to have D&D. The first one was like a modern age zombie apocalypse. Don't know, some American town, small town, like always in zombie apocalypses. Very convenient. In a hospital, actually, where we had two players. One was someone who had memory loss and woke up from an accident, and the other one was the nurse. And the other one shot was in the 80s. Actually, not in the 80s. Started in modern day, and then they teleported to the 80s and were like a girl rock band. So there were three bards, and they were playing ultimately against the elites. So yes, the next one I'm preparing is a steampunk one, but because I know there are rules from steampunk, but I want to stretch the D&D rules again.
I'm actually in Labyrinthos team. It is a big group of friends where we organize big D&D events. For example, we're talking about more than 100 people playing, and there is always some interaction between the tables. We call this event the Monster Annual. It's a pun. It's a it's a monstrous annual event. It used to be before the quarantine, and there is always some interaction between tables. Sometimes there is a war between two races. Sometimes there are many factions and they try to cooperate for a main purpose, or they try to compete each other at the same time. And once we created the zombie apocalypse mechanic between the tables, creating communities trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. And another time there was this treasure hunt between pirate crews. Each table represented a ship, and they were trying to reach at the treasure first, solving riddles and comparing clues and trying to reach their aim and things like that. It used to be an annual tradition the years before the 2020, and I think it was the greatest D&D event in Greece during those years. Just D&D. But there are other conventions as well.
For conventions, I mean, it's the usual, big conventions. You just have usually an RPG corner somewhere, or groups that do D&D or other RPGs. They have booths so that they can promote their hobbies. I think the largest one is AthensCon, it's usually in November. We also have Gameathlon, it's usually in the summer. We have Comic Dome in spring. We have some in Thessaloniki as well. We had Fantasticon, I know, but this stopped, which was a fantasy oriented. I think we'll have the one in Athens too in October, a new one, the sequel to Fantasticon, but I don't remember the name. Fantasy Festival, I think they call it something like that, which will be because of the fantasy aim. I think it will be closer to RPGs. But yeah, these are the big conventions that only have. It also have RPG corners. Some bigger corners like Fantasticon, some are smaller like Gameathlon. But pure RPG corners are the events that Dennis organizes with his team, Monster Annual and the like.
I was happy to hear that conventions and clubs are such a big thing in Greece because they really keep the hobby alive. I talked to the president of a gaming club in Athens to get some more details and some funny anecdotes.
Hi, my name is Eleni Kontiza. In my daily life, I'm a physicist, but outside the classroom and the lab, I'm an RPG GM for about 26 years now. I started playing tabletop RPGs when I was 16 years old in 1996. It was a funny story because a friend just had the first rule book that it was a magazine, actually. It was a little thing. And he was like, I know you write stories and we need somebody to tell us stories. And that's how I got hooked up. And from that time, I started being an forever DM. That's how I got hooked up in the RPG communities. From there, at the university, it was more of a hobby. It was a way of expressing myself, writing stories, and having fun. And the last 4 years now that I'm back in Athens, because I'm from Greece, I'm in a club. It's called Desperos. It's one of the oldest gaming clubs in Greece. And for the last 2 years, I represent this club as the president of the club. In the club, we play board games, a lot of board games. We have over 500 titles. Also, we play a lot of RPGs, every kind of RPGs. Our main is D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. We play Dresden Files. We play World of Darkness, Vampire, Maids, Werewolves. We play Numenera. We play Cthulhu. We play Paranoia. Also, we play homebrew stuff. We create our own games many times. And the list goes on and on. Shadowrun, it's endless. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones. Every RPG that have ever come in life, we have played it and even created some of our own. The club was founded 21 years ago in June 2001. There were 20 people that were looking for a home for their games. And they wanted also to share their interest with the other people around them because they love board games, they love role-play games, they love strategy games. So Esperos Gaming Club was founded. After that, the history is big. We started with the basic Dungeons and Dragons table RPGs. We were very contributing in the LARP community because we started one of the first organizing LARP campaigns in vampires. And also we are making a mystery murder events. But our main events are table RPGs. One of the things that we have it as a tradition is doing mass campaigns. Mass campaigns means multiple players, multiple tables, and multiple DMs. The tables interact between them. They play the same setting in the same world, in the same system, and all of them contributes to the story. Esperos is doing that 21 years now, and that's our main events. But also we have board games event, we have miniature painting events. Also we are starting to do GM's workshops. And also in Esperos, we include everybody. I mean, everyone from the community is welcome. We have a lot of creators, writers, artists, animation people, graphic people that works in it. And one of our targets is the new members, the new players, the people that are not connected to the community. And mass campaigns are a wonderful way for new players or GMs to be introduced in the world of RPG, because the old guard helps and guide the newcomers, and they have people that know how to engage them and make them hooked in the game. Also, we give space in order to create new things, new stories, new settings, new systems. And also, we provide everything. I mean, you have your miniature, you have your rule books, you have a place to play, and you have a place to just come for a coffee and discuss your favorite hobby games. Recently, a newbie, because I like the term newbie, a newbie came to me and came to the club. And when he entered, his reaction was like, "Wow, you are the Hellfire Club of Greece from Stranger Things." And I was like, "Yes, but we are older than them." I don't think it's only the Stranger Things. If you see the movies, Big Bang Theory, and other series, they represent Dungeons and Dragons, especially, as not just the nerd way or the elite way. It makes them look like fun and cool. Because when I started playing the game, actually, I was the only woman DMing in my community. All around me, I knew a lot of people, but I was the only woman that was DMing. And it was really weird for me. Also, there weren't a lot of women players when I started. The last year, this has changed a lot dramatically. It has become more mainstream, and it's not only Stranger Thing, it's Big Bang. All the movies talk about D&D, and also I think Rick Carroll played a very, very crucial role to that. But at the same time, the new players come with high expectations, because they don't understand, for example, that these things are scripted. People that are professionals, we are not professionals. We are doing as a hobby. We are DMing because we like it. Or, as I said, because I have stories in my head, I want to embody them, I want to live them. For me, the crucial thing with new players is for them to understand what actually tabletop RPG means in the gameplay. I cannot do 100 different voices. I don't know how. I will try to embody my NPCs, but I'm not a professional voice actor. I will try to make my table interesting, craft some things, make some handouts, but I don't have a big team behind me creating me my terrain. I have to do it with my two hands. Also, it's not my work, it's not my living. It's my hobby, so I can't give all the time in the world doing that. So it's one of the things that the newcomers have to understand, that we are doing it because we like it, we love it, we do it, we give our times, especially the DMs and the game masters. We give it because we love it. We don't do it because we're getting paid or because we are having something to earn than the happiness of the game. RPGs are also in the educational lab here in Crete, in Rethymno. They are working in RPG games for educational purposes. You can learn mathematics through RPG games. You can learn physics through RPG game. Well, mathematics you can understand only with the rolling the dice and doing the calculation. It's easy. Personally, I have tried and worked with children in elementary age and did an RPG called Alice in the Land of Mathematics. I got inspired by a book. There's a book actually called like that. Embodied it as an RPG, worked it for 1 year with children between 8 and 10, and we start learning high concepts of mathematics through the RPG. For example, prime numbers, Eratosthenes sieve. It's a way to find the prime numbers, things like that. And you had children in the elementary school understanding high concepts of mathematics that students in the university cannot understand them because we do it through game and through an RPG. And it was very interesting. Okay, as it happened in the USA in the 80s, also when D&D started to be becoming more known in the Greek children, teenagers, okay, the yayades, the grandmothers, they thought that it was satanistic, that we were, how to say it, make things to call the devil in earth because they couldn't understand. They didn't know English. They just see weird symbols, you know. It didn't go so wild as in USA, but there were some articles in newspapers and things like that calling D&D and gamers that they corrupt the children and make them demon lovers and things like that. But it got us really fast in Greece. Well, a friend of mine, Vasiliki, she's a member of the Esperos, and also she's a DM as well. She was making fun and said that if a demon comes to my kitchen, I will give him a sandwich. Because demons do not get sandwich. I will have a chat with him to tell me what is happening, to understand, to make my games better. You know, we laugh with that. You know, it's not something. Okay, for us that we play the game, it seems ridiculous. But if you see it from the point of view of somebody that have never played such game, imagine 2 generations behind, our grandmothers. For them, it's something out of their mind. It's like, you know, when science at the beginning, it was magic, but then we realize it's just science. It's the same thing. When something you don't know it, you're afraid of it. And when you are afraid of something, you make it of being the devil. I believe that after we started explaining to our people around us that this is the game. Okay, my mother, it does not understand. Okay, I played 26 years now. And my mother knows the games I'm playing. She still cannot understand. She start understanding the first time I play the game with her. I have played RPG with my mother to explain to her what is it that I'm giving my time and what is it I'm playing. She was like, okay, I get it now. It's not my cup of tea, but I understand why you like it. Her interpretation was it's like improv and something creative. For her, it was like the way she interpreted it, that it's something that you do improvisation and you are creative and it's a way to lash out your creativity. But I think if we go and, you know, look the other in the eye and explain them, not with elitistic way, but simple, this is why I play it, this is what it is. It doesn't mean that they have to accept it as a way of entertainment, okay? But they will understand it and not, you know, make it the devil or something that is corrupt. Many times I tell to my, because I have a lot of students that are into D&D now because of the mainstreaming. And when the parents asking me about it, what I tell them is, do you prefer your child being in front of a TV, in front of a laptop, in front of a game on the PC? Or you prefer to have interaction with other people and doing something face to face and work his imagination and work his problems through the character? Because for me, RPG games is not just a game. It's a way to work your problems. It's a way to discover yourself. It's a way to just express yourself. It's a way to dare to do things that you wouldn't do in real life. It's a way to learn how to socialize. I have students with Asperger, and I have found it that through RPGs, they learn how to socialize. Because it's easier for them to start understanding socialize through a character, and then what they learn through the character to take it and put it in work in the real life. Because when you do it through a character, even if you fail, it doesn't have any consequences in your real life. So when you take that fear out, It helps very much people with social anxiety, with shyness. It helps them to come out and to realize themselves and realize that they can communicate and it's not something that you cannot do. Actually, a fun fact, there is the university in Greece that they're teaching in the curriculum RPG games. It's in the architectural school in Crete, Polytechnic of Crete. There are no official translations in Greek. There are some people that work around it, like the Goblin Tavern. It's an online community in Greece that they are translating the SRD stuff in Greek to help people that don't know very good English to get in the game. But there are actually not any official translated rule books. The only one officially translated the rule book in Greek is the D&D Player's Handbook 3.5 edition. It was one of the early translations, so there were some things that were literally translated. So when you were reading it, it was very weird in your mind because some words from English to Greek were a little bit funny. You know, when you translate something that is in English, like a spell, a name of a spell, and translate it in Greek, it's not the same in the ear and makes other ways to understand it. Generally, it was a very good effort, but it needed more experience in order to translate it. We didn't have enough experience. You cannot translate the name Blackstaff, for example. What you're going to call it in Greek. You are going to keep it Blackstaff. Like in real life, when you translate, okay, my name is Eleni, for example, okay? But sometimes in English, they call it Helen. Helen is different from Eleni. It's not the same name. It's not my name. It's not how I have learned to hear it and respond to it. So it's not a matter of correct or incorrect translation. It's a matter of translating in the concept and in the content of the book you are translating, especially in games, because terminology is very important in these games. It's our common language so that we all can play together. Because attack roll, for example, it's the same for everyone. From whatever country you are, you know what means you have to take an attack roll or a saving throw. Almost in all our games, we play in Greek language, but all the terminology is in English. For example, where I'm DMing, I'm not gonna ask in Greek. I'm gonna tell him in Greek, yes, you have to take an attack roll. I will say all the words in Greek except from the attack roll or the saving throw, because we all know the same terminology. So usually in a Greek session, a lot of words are in English. A fun fact is that we have people that have learned English because of the rule books. We are taught English in the school, okay, but not high level English. Because of the game, a lot of people have been more fluent in English because we are using the English terminology, or you have to read English in the books. So it's very funny from an educational point that people at school, they didn't like to learn English, but now that there is a game involved, they do by themselves without a teacher. They're trying to learn it in order to understand the game better. We usually set them in Athens. In such RPGs, you need the landmarks, and it's easier to play with landmarks we know. We even use the original maps from the city. For example, not only Vampire, we also played the Dresden Files, played it in Athens. It was one of the longest mass campaigns we had in Ensperos. Everything was happening in Athens. Not only Athens, in Greece, generally. Usually we feel more comfortable to know the landmarks, so it's easy to immerse your character in it. For example, you don't know the USA landmarks from a city. You don't know the landmarks in Germany if you haven't lived in Germany. So you cannot have ideas how your character is going to act or where it's going to walk, or have in your mind to create the vision of where it's walking. But when it's something that you know, you can imagine your character walking down the street in the night. You can even feel the smell because you know it, it's familiar. I believe that each country has its history and culture, but the history and culture in Greece is very deep, very big. For example, there is a project that we are thinking about. And the funny thing is that the wizard once again cut us up. I think they're listening to us. We are thinking about writing stories, D&D stories, about urban legend of Greece. They are located in Greece and they are urban legend of Greece. There is a sanatorium in Parnitha. Parnitha is a mountain in Athens that is considered one of the most haunted places in Greece. And there's also a park that is called the Park of Souls. Opposite of that an artist was inspired and created some forms from wood. And you can imagine how many things that you can think about it, like Silent Hill in Greece. Or there is a well in Kifissia that there is a myth about it from children drowning there. So you have a lot of urban legends that you can use them to make horror RPG. Generally, everybody uses the myths from the ancient Greece mythology and generally from the mythology. And when the Odyssey came out, that it's a Greek setting actually in a way. You have monsters from the Greek mythology. You have things for gods from the Greek mythology. It was really interesting because they try to represent them, but sometimes they represent them in a funny way for us. They're not exactly the gods, the myths, the monsters that we have grown up hearing a story as children. They're a little more compromised in a way to fit the setting of the game. But it's good to see your culture being embodied in a worldwide game. It's very interesting and it's an honor, because Greek history, Greek mythology has influenced everyone's culture. Not that we are better or worse, but it's one of the long lasting cultures. So for me, it's something that, okay, yeah, of course, it's gonna influence everyone around us. Greek people immigrated to all over the world, so they took their culture with them. So fifth generation people that live in other countries, they have that culture inside them and they express it in the games, in everything. If you think of it, it's really, really funny how many people are very close to the gods of Olympus. They're very familiar with things that from the Greek mythology. It's really, really funny. And they're not Greek. But it's interesting and it's an honor, In a way, it's an honor that people that are not from Greece, they know our culture and they use our culture and they honor our culture. So for me, it's a good thing to have things pop out in every game in tabletop RPGs that come from Greece, even if are not exactly the same. Cryptes and Katharmata, we have played in the club. We have the book, and we support Fotis, the writer. He's a friend of Esperos. We have played it. Also, we have created our own. Like this year, we have played Alter Carbon. Before the Alter Carbon came out, we have already started creating the game as a homebrew, and we have a mass campaign in Alter Carbon. 2 tables, 2 DMs, groups playing for it, and it's go for the second year to keep playing. Also, there is the Soul Mist. It's a setting that Greek creators made it, but it's written in English. And the creators are all Greek, from Crete, actually.
So some more research revealed that there have been a couple of Greek games published in the last decades, though some are already out of print and might not be widely available anymore. Here's Dennis again.
I'm sure there are more. I've heard of the one that's called Cryptes and Katharmata. I think it is inspired by the Byzantine Empire. I'm not sure.
I was able to reach the author of Cryptes kai Katharmata, whose name is Fotis, but unfortunately we weren't able to arrange an interview. Thankfully, he sent me extensive notes, so here we go. Cryptes kai Katharmata means something like crypts and bastards. It's an OSR-inspired referee tabletop adventure game. It's about treasure hunting adventures, exploring wild, far-off lands full of ruins, labyrinths, dangers, and lost treasures. The setting implied by the book is a mythical, uncharted sword and sorcery version of the Byzantine eastern borderlands in medieval Central Asia. There's no definite setting in the book, but the game's content and random generation tables imply a certain setting and aesthetics. From a gameplay and design perspective, K&K draws inspiration from early Dungeons & Dragons. The author does not consider it to be a retro clone, but draws a lot of inspiration from the original Dungeons & Dragons booklets and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. It only uses 6-sided dice, but remains compatible with old school and OSR material. As part of OSR, it crystallizes and cleans up the original gameplay and is fast-flowing, rules-light, lethal, and adventurous. Player skill is favored over mechanical mastery. Players gain fame, so experience points, and levels by carousing, spending the spoils from their adventures in feasts and other frivolous activities. This reward system gives a clear objective to the players so that there's player-driven, sandbox-style gaming. In the same spirit, the book provides a very extensive collection of content generation tools. So you can roll full playable setting, random geography, settlements, lairs, ruins, multi-level dungeons, and even random paradoxical beasts, demons, strange cults, and NPCs. Photis firmly believes that language plays a very central aesthetic and also functional role in a role-playing game. So he wanted to create an RPG in his native language. Basing it on old-school D&D is very fitting here because in D&D we have a lot of medieval European folklore and classical mythology, which is often of Greek origin. So it was easy to adapt that. And for Western European titles like feudalism or knight, they used Eastern Roman ones instead. So game terms in Greek come from also researching Byzantine and more ancient sources. For example, from Kekavmenos Strategikon or Leos Tactica. Other sources were Michael Psellus on the Operation of Demons, which is a medieval text on demonology, and other parts are based on Hellenistic roots. For example, some of the monsters, like Kynokephaloi, which is people with dogs' heads, which is typical for Byzantine folktales. The content of the game is based on Greek literary works, especially the painter and writer Fotis Kontoglou, who lived from 1895 to 1965, who wrote some very evocative Byzantine-era short stories, some of them even Lovecraftian in style. And he wrote about adventurers, mystics, and historical themes, Byzantine time, Greece, Eastern Rome. Then there's the Romance of Alexander, which is a medieval recounting of Alexander the Great's campaign in Western Asia. And then there's the Greek acritic and cleptic tradition, so medieval Greek folk poems and songs like the Epic of Digenes, celebrating heroic feats of legendary border guards and mountain bandits. Also as sources, Fotis used the Byzantine chronicler Ioannis Skylitzes, who wrote about the Byzantine time. And also as Easter eggs, he included some references to contemporary Greek culture. Then there's some non-Greek influences. So from Thracian and Scythian culture, the Anatolian peoples, and Turkic and Central Asian mythology. So he mentions, for example, Turkish ashiks, which are folk poets, dervishes, some mythical creatures and demons, Tibetan-style sky burials, and aesthetics such as Siyah Kalem, which is Turkish for black pen, and is a collection of illustrations of Turkic Central Asian nomadic life. So that's basically what Fotis told me about his game. And for another Greek game, Mythic Revolutions, I managed to speak to a different Fotis, who is the author of the game.
Hi, I am Fotis Agonas and live in Athens, Greece. I am an RPG player for more than 3 decades now. I am also an author of historical novels, comics, and a creator of card game and role-playing games. I have played a lot of RPGs and for about 3 years LARP in Greece. First time I played was played as a student, and my first DM, Piscolias, remain till today my DM for some of these games. I have played a lot of RPGs, mostly Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, and Traveler. Next to me is a very good friend of mine, Yota, who has also been for many years a playtester.
Hello, I am a good friend of Fotis. We met in the Greek LARPing scene, and then I became a playtester for his games and an audience for his books. So yeah, I know Mythic Revolutions, the game we're gonna introduce, very well.
Mythic Revolutions RPG was published in 2018 in two languages, English and Greek edition, with positive reviews by Greek Australian media, radio and newspaper. This RPG Mythic Revolution is the result of years of playtesting by dozens of experienced players in GM in Greece. This game is only a fraction of a much bigger cosmos and narration, the Hypercosmos universe, which unfolds different mythological and historical eras and includes different types of games and fictions such as trading card game, RPGs, board game, comics, and novels. In the start, this RPG was tested with a campaign that was placed in an ancient mythological environment in ancient Greece and Atlantis. Later, with my wife Katerina Stylou, a school teacher and sociologist, we worked on different campaigns that was focused on the year of enlightenment in Europe and the great and historical revolutions that took place in the late of 18th and the 19th century all over the world. The specific period and campaign of the Hypercosmos, to its historical significance, was named Mythic Revolution. It started with the American and French Revolution and go with the Greek Revolution in 1821, which resulted in the creation of the Greek independent state. The campaign continues with October Revolution in Russia, and this campaign can be strictly be a historical one, but also include mythic and supernatural, depending from the campaign. The first published book of Mythic Revolutions RPG includes 3 adventures about the Greek Revolution and Aboriginal genocide, which took place during the first Australian colonization. Every historical period of the game is focused also in some important genocide, as the Indian and Aboriginal genocide and the Jewish genocide. Firstly, the same need of any RPG player to create their own RPG. Then, the need for a game to focus on the Europeans and on not only history. I was always fascinated by the idea of narrating via an RPG the Great Revolution that changed our world. I was intrigued by the possible ways that important political choices and acts could be represented through roles in such a game. And yes, I have inspired from the ancient Greek and European mythology, medieval myth, and part of modern history. This game can be played in any historical or mythological period.
I think history and mythology, it's enough of an inspiration. It's huge, it's vast. You don't need anything else. But of course, I mean, for me, it inspires me every day to have something political, let's say, historical and political, that talks about important decisions. It's very nice to see how flexible this game can be and how people want to interact with the political figures. We played the scene, let's say, of Lenin's abduction. We tried to free Lenin. Okay, so it was incredible how half of the players wanted to play a political game and participate in the conference and have debates and all that. And half of them wanted to do crazy D&D adventures with Lenin. And it was so funny when we were trying to save Lenin. Players were in danger. The soldiers were hunting them. Lenin had to actually take part in the fighting. I mean, that was not in the scenario, but they were in such danger. All of them would die. And we ended up using Lenin as a PC character, so he could save them. That was so funny. I mean, the point was for the players to relive the history, to relive the action.
The charge of Winter's...
The charge of the Winter Palace, all that. Some of them knew about it, some of them didn't. It was an actual history lesson.
System is very simple. D6 system with usually 3 dice. It's very easy to learn new gamer. The character hasn't classes or level, only skill and talent. Some talents can focus the same type, like fighter, priest, psionic, etc. Or a very strong talent, intelligent, quick, etc.
There are no classes, but you can make a build that resembles classes with the talents. I always say that this system is a trap because it is very welcoming and very easy for a newcomer, for a new gamer. But many times you're going to be overwhelmed about how much agency you have, because you have a lot of agency in Mythic Revolutions. You can choose practically whatever and build a character with a lot of depth, with many different talents. You can make him more leaning towards one side or the other, but there are many things you have to think about. And that makes it more fun in the end. There are many non-human races. Right now, they are mostly humanoids because they are, fae, elves, dwarves, let's say, at the campaigns that exist now. And in the sci-fi campaigns, the playable characters are still human. It's mostly history heavy. So humans and humanoids have the protagonist role right now. But no, in the future, it's very open. There are going to be more non-human races. Let's elaborate on the dice system. It's a D6 system. The base is 3 dice, and you get more dice added as you stack up talents. And depending on the difficulty, the GM is going to add 1 red die. The red die deducts 1 die of the same or less value. That is your level of difficulty in every action you take. And it's an explosive system. Every time you have a 6 in your die, you get another die. And the same goes for the red die. So that goes back to the comment what is made. You can have a very powerful game.
Difficulty standard, 10. You throw 3 dice, get 10.
Yeah. Your base is always 10 or your character is AC. So that's your base. We talk about how you add dice through your talents, how you deduct dice through the difficulty the GM chooses with the red dice. And when you reach your base, every die that remains after you deduct everything, it's your critical success. There's a very detailed system of magic, very detailed supernatural system. You can put supernatural intervention everywhere.
Ethereal, astral plane, dream world, upper and lower dimensions.
So many times,
fairy world.
The fairy world, many times Fotis in his adventures has, let's say, provided an excuse for famous historical happenings or events, a supernatural excuse, let's say. Heresies, divine beings, people moving in and out of planes. So yeah, right now, it's together, as you said, both in English and in Greek, in the same book. But the next version is going to be a much bigger book, much more detailed, only in English.
My writing plans for the future are many more Hypercosmos Universe campaign setting to be published in the Asian and mythological period, also in medieval, Great Revolutions, modern time, and solar expanse science fantasy campaign. We're planning to start this project, maybe the next year.
And you heard that right. Mythic Revolutions is a Greek RPG which is also available in English. And there are also D&D supplements in English written by a team of Greek authors.
Well, my name is George Sfendourakis. I'm currently staying in Greece, specifically in Crete, and I actually got into role-playing games by accident quite a few years back. You see, my father was an avid hobby fan, playing board games, Magic the Gathering and the like. So he often took me to the hobby shop where I encountered the Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. I remember reading the back cover of the book and I was immediately smitten with the whole concept. I think I read the book in 2 or 3 nights back then. And I immediately wanted to get into this world. And I'm still in love with it till today. Apart from that, well, DMing it's the hobby I prefer the most, to the point where I've tried to turn it into a career. I've been professionally DMing for a few years now, and, well, it's going quite well. D&D is, well, quite an exciting game. I would say an experience shared between the Dungeon Master and the players around the table. However, I have found that not everyone can acquire the proper group to enjoy this experience as best they can. Some people have issues with time management, others have issues finding more people. So I am a dungeon master for hire, which would mean that there's some monetary compensation when I am running a group. And that means I have some more responsibilities to offer something better than I would as a hobby. It's up to me to go above and beyond what would be expected of a dungeon master, to offer a more immersive experience, something that will create unique memories to remember for time to come. Apart from that, as a professional DM, I offer, well, whatever would be required for a good session. And I mean, apart from doing the voices and the narrating and having the maps and all the stuff, you also need to make sure that you put together a good group and deal with your players on an intimate basis. There's a lot of times where you have a leak from the experiences of what happened during a session. Problems may arise, even feuds may develop if you don't handle things properly. I think that's the most difficult part of doing this professionally, and the part I would expect of anyone who calls himself a professional, that he ensures everyone has a good time, that he can read his players properly to do so, to change the pacing of the adventure and make sure that there are no issues afterwards. Everyone has a happy memory of the session. I did find quite a few like-minded individuals in the Aaron Chronicles Writers Group, where we have created a few things for the DM's Guild. I think our most successful one was the first one that kicked off the whole partnership, Journey of the Godslayer. And then our magnum opus would be the Journey of the Spirit Walker. It's a bit less catchy of a title, I understand that, but we're still learning and I think we are improving a lot with each publication. I can give quite a few more details about the book I was involved in. I mean, Aaron Chronicles has done a few other works as well, which are quite interesting. The first book where I cooperated with this team was The Journey of the Godslayer, specifically information for a DM who seeks to run a high fantasy campaign where the goal of the campaign is to challenge the gods for one reason or another. Be it they want to replace them or they're fed up with how they handle things. It heavily depends on the world of the DM. Apart from that, we give a few tools about what a god can actually do. What boons could he give to a religious player who is perhaps battling an enemy deity, or what banes he could impose for the sacrilege required to commit in order to actually stand against a god. Finally, some stat blocks for the 5th edition of D&D in order to encapsulate the threat such a being could possess, what would happen once a god is defeated, and a few tools, magic items, class abilities, and the like for the player to arm themselves with in such a journey. The second one, the Journey of the Spirit Walker, it has, let's say, a unique fantasy. It touches upon animism and the thought that spirits live inside everything that surrounds us. They live inside the mountain, they take care of a river, or even are being deep parts but has some unfinished business. Perhaps they're incarnation of someone's own emotions that have taken on a will of their own. It describes how a world would be impacted by such a concept. It gives quite a few monsters based on that fantasy, along with information about how they would act, where they live, how they react with things like, for example, music for those creatures that are made of this world. We actually have incorporated, a few songs to accompany each of the creatures that are more susceptible to music, as well as how you could create a spiritual character to interact with all these things, how to create magic items from these things, how spiritual magic works. I'd say it's pretty complete regarding this fantasy, even if it is a bit niche as a subject. We tried to incorporate it into an agnostic setting. As far as inspirations go, we looked at the medieval mythology of Vikings, Celtic mythology, and then some Eastern mythology, specifically Shinto, where we found quite a few similarities between their religion of the kami and animism. Since the whole writing group is Greek currently, I think we were pretty inspired by our own mythology. Though there are a few epics in other mythologies where they try to make a journey to defeat an unjust god, I think there are many, many myths in Greece. As far as religions themselves go, we did try to incorporate the domains of deities regardless of Greek mythology, trying to incorporate at least a few themes from other pantheons, such as the Egyptian or the Aztec one. Each of us has a passion with role-playing games, specifically D&D. So I think each of us wants to not leave a mark, but help other dungeon masters with this fantasy, create a story that can be shared with everyone of the hobby, regardless of their mother tongue. It's more about sharing this with others than it is about, we wouldn't want to put up barriers. That being said, I have participated in other writing groups, specifically the Goblin's Tavern, where they are specifically trying to promote role-playing games and tabletop games in the Greek community. In that setting, we did write a few books only in Greek. They are free of charge since the whole purpose is to promote games in Greece. While we are trying to get into more RPGs and teach people some lesser known names in the genre, these books still are stories, for the 5th edition so far. It is the most popular one, something easy to get into really, and since we did host quite a few events teaching people the concept of RPGs, the first step into doing that was creating a few stories in the 5th edition.
It's not only the language. Greek mythology is also really popular as an inspiration in many fantasy RPGs. Here are Dennis and Spiros again.
So I think that it makes sense. I mean, there are not many big mythologies in the Western world. It's the Greek, the Norse, the Mexican, but really few people know about it. And I think that's pretty much it. I think it makes sense that almost half the creatures from the Greek mythology, the other half from the Norse. Yeah, for me it's logical.
And I think it's not only logical, it's mythological. Okay, I did it, Spiro. I made a pun.
You had to make a pun in the interview too. You could not. I mean, Dennis is notorious for making puns. I mean,
Okay.
he's a pun master.
Yes. I mean, it's it was an era, it was an age of fantasy. It was an age where people created their gods, they created their stories, their monsters, and yeah, there's a lot of imagination there and creativity. So of course, the Greek mythology could be a great inspiration for monsters and more. Funny Greek story about the monster manual. We have the category lycanthrope, and under that you have your were-tiger, you have your werewolf, you have your, I don't know, were-rat, were-boar, were-bear, all this. But the funny thing in Greek is that lycanthrope is a Greek word actually meaning human wolf. Lycanthropos, lycanthrope. Lykos, wolf, anthropos, human. So under the category human wolf, we have human tigers, human, I don't know, rats, etc. And also under a human wolf, we have werewolf in Greek. That's what it's like to us. And I can tell you also about the word minotaur. It is a word that we use globally about those humanoid bulls, right? And the name, of course, is based on the Greek myth of Minoas, the ancient king of Crete. That's the guy that created the labyrinth. The first dungeon, by the way. Maybe, I don't know. The first dungeon in mythologies. Yeah, and we still, in Forgotten Realms, you have your Minotaur, and the part of the word Mino means nothing for the Forgotten Realms, but it is based on the Greek mythos. For example, we don't use the word human bull or humanoid bull or something. We still use the word minotaur.
The Greek role-playing scene has a rich environment of clubs, shops, conventions, and even a couple of Greek language games. For the end of the episode, Eleni gives an outlook on what gaming is all about.
Okay, one thing that I'm very glad is that the last 10 years actually, the community has come closer. We are sharing things. We are communicating. We are actually a community. In the early years, we were just a few people playing the game. Now we are a lot of people playing the game, and we are open to newcomers, and we have fun together. There is a feeling of being comrades in the games now. You have gaming clubs cooperating, you have the shops cooperating with the gaming clubs, you have a lot. For me, I'm very happy when we have new clubs founded in Greece, for example. We have a club in Karditsa, we have clubs in Crete, we have clubs in Athens, we have clubs in Larissa. I mean, they're starting to be more organizing in the community. And also, we have AthensCon, we have Gameathlon, we have Fantasy Festival, we have CretaCon. When I started playing the games, there was only one shop you can go and find your materials. Now you have many shops to go and find your materials. Now you have people that you can go and ask for their opinion and their advice. So it is enlightening, it's bright, it's a future that I see, that the games go on and they connect us. For me, RPG games connect people from other cultures, from other countries, and give us a common ground to learn from each other, to get to know each other. And also, for me, RPG games is a way of finding yourself, grounding yourself, and express your creativity. Okay, one of the most epic things we have done the last 4 years, it was the ending of a mass campaign. There were about 25 players and 5 GMs, and it was the final battle with the necromancer. And it was about 210 undead enemies with a necromancer, of course. And all the players, I loved it that they give the time and work it out, and not only during the session, but work it outside of the session in downtime, and try to find the way in order to win the battle, not just like go with brutal force. They started gathering the troops. They gathered about 50 people to go into the battle. And it was epic because I let them play the NPCs they choose. So, because I was playing 210 advents. So if I had the NPCs as well, it was going to be crazy for me. And it was very funny the way they work together and how they collaborate, because in the mass campaign, you don't have people that they're friends. They're not people that, we are friends, we are 5 people that we decided to play together. They just by chance became in this group. And they collaborated and do an epic battle where there were 2 walls of fire cutting down the stage, and you have all the feeling of the epicness. You know what I mean? It was epic, and they felt it, and it was amazing because you had 5 people that they weren't friends, they weren't together playing 3 years, but they cooperated and won the counter, not because they were big characters, but because they cooperated and find smart ways in order to win the counter. And after that, they became friends, of course. They still play games together. That's the magic of playing the game. You can come in contact with people you don't know, and afterwards, after the games, they can become real friends for life. Okay, it's not always sunny in the games, okay, but I think that at the end, when you start and see what happened, you realize that at the end, everything is good. Of course, we fight about the rules. Of course, there are disagreements, but at the end, we all come happy from the table. For me, that's the goal. When you finish the session, everyone should have a smile on the face, and then we go for beers, even though if I killed all the players. Okay, that's the concept. The game is something that we do to have fun, to spend our time with quality, the quality we decide it's good for us, and then we go out for beers and discuss how crazy the DM is and killed us.
So thank you for listening to the World of RPGs. Special thanks goes out to the Greek gamers who talked to me, Eleni, Fotis, Jota, Dennis, Spiros, and George. I'd also like to thank Fotis from Cryptis Kai Kathamata for sending me the detailed description of his game, and to Kostas Yo Master for helping me with some contacts. The music was Battle of the Dragons by Thomas Muziu. And I just remembered I wanted to start a new tradition in this episode where I point out other interesting podcasts which are about role-playing games or popular genres for RPGs. We begin with the World of Dark Ages podcast. It's about White Wolf's Dark Age setting for their World of Darkness games, and the show is hosted by a Dane, Jakob Klunder, and a Swede, Peter Vrede. I hope I pronounced these right. And they're both history fans and dig into the books not only as game supplements, but also discuss the historical accuracies or inaccuracies and look at how the different regions of Europe, for example, are portrayed in the books. So if the World of RPGs is not enough for you, why not add the World of Dark Ages, which you can find at the usual podcasting sites, and they also have a Facebook group. Subscribe to this channel, which you can now do on Spotify and iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and get ready for episode 4. We're leaving Europe and cover a different region of the world in the next 3 episodes. The following actual play was quite difficult to find, since most people speaking that language had told me that there was no actual play in their language. I did finally manage to track down the GM and interviewed him, so I'm really glad we have the following teaser, and maybe you can even figure out which language it is.
يعني you can confirm إنه في Sacred Flame with evil influence.
أي بس يعني بمعنى كلمة evil يعني bad شريرة يعني ممكن، ويعني خطورتها يعني الشركز ياخذون شيء أقرب للجود، فإحنا جايين مكان
نحاول
سيء حاليا.
بالضبط. أنا حيل مو مرتاح في المكان. فضل نخلص يعني شغلنا بسرعة لأنه ما ندري يعني مع المست ومع الظلمة شنو بيكون وضعي.
نفضل نخلص بسرعة.
زين احنا اوكي، بس في شيء عندنا ما اعرف حي ميت جثة عنا تشوفون ياسة حبل عدال اورن.
أنا فليت الحبل اللي ما حرطت فيني.
عادي على الحبل ليش
عبرنا
خلصنا تعال
احنا طلعت ليش قاعد تجري الحبل؟ ما حد مربوط فيه.
بارانويد يا جماعة بارانويد.
فوصلتوا وخذيتوا فكرة عن الموضوع وتناقشتوا سالفة اللايت. طيب بتروحون؟
بطلع الهد بس كم إشارة. I'll be sure not to touch the crowd. أول شيء بطالع بشوف فتحينا رسبونس شيء.
خلينا نبطله.
طالع ربعي ورد طالعه. يقول له وين لازم نروح؟
وأنت ماسك الهد من شارة. وتقول له إنه وين بيروح تلاقي حاجة يتبطل شوية، هو يعني شوية مبطل بس تلاقي يعني شوية ينزل لتحت في نفس خلينا نقول روح شوية تطلع من بريفلي تطلع من حلجة وتبدأ تطير. تعرف توم جيري شلون ريحة الأكل شلون شي تسحب توم يطلع شغلة شي كأنه ويف.
يقول له بس لقينا وجهتنا.
تبدأ تتجه يعني تشوفونها تمشي مثل تراك كذي داخل انت ذا مست يعني. من زمان هولدنج هذا رول سانيتي تشيك يلا اكسبت ثرو.
رول
11 رول برسنت طلع
سهلات 14.
واو زين.
اسم نايس ما يجيو شباب.
شوف كاركترك الحين يصير له اكسبيرينس حق طبعا تيوت سنات بس يعني متى جيمنج وايز قاعد يحوش كلوسيشن زين. ف راح تشوف شغلات بس شنو انت از اورن شنو اكثر شيء تخافه يعني او انا اقول لك انت يو منشند ان كنت بارينا صح؟ راح تشوف من ضمن الهلوسيشنز كامرادز قدم تشوفهم within the mist تشوف ناس تعرفهم وكانوا ربعك بالارينا. اوكي يمكن ما في ربع بالارينا ولكن يعني خلينا نقول زملاء كانوا معاك وتعرفهم بينكم علاقه ويبين ثروبات مع بعض وايد وماتوا خلال وجودهم بالارينا. تشوفهم بدمهم الانجريز مالتهم مو كلهم الحين ولكن حط ببالك ان الشغله هذه راح تصير معاك بيرمننت طول ما انت قاعد تمشي حاليا بالمكان اللي احنا فيه through the session. بين فتره وفتره عادي تلاقي مثلا جثه طايحه على الارض واحد من الكامرادز واحد قاعد يحتضر مثلا على جنب. المشاهد هذه كلها اللي ممكن تصير بالارينا عرفت التراجيديز هذول. فراح تبدا تشوف شغلات ودن انت لا you're not aware انت تشوفهم الهلوسينيشنز وهو الشخص يشوفهم بس الباقي ما يشوفونهم هو قاعد يهلوس ولكن انت مقتنع انه قاعد تشوفهم